Hello, and thanks for listening to PXP Podcast. It's a show about leadership, self-development, personal growth, and accountability. I'm your host, Jayme Yarroch. Now, you can catch our podcast on almost any platform or directly from our website at pxppodcast.com. To hear it hot off the press, check out our host on the Podbean app. If you have questions or want to hear a particular topic discussed, or even want to be a guest on the show, connect with me on social and send me a message. Now, are you ready to kick off today's episode? All right, here we go. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to PXP. I'm your host, Jayme Yarroch, and today we're going to be tackling the topic that we like to call clearing the log jams. Now, you may have heard this saying before. It has a little bit of similarity to eating the frog, which you may have heard of as well. We did a podcast episode on that several episodes ago, maybe 10 or so. Just look down in the episode list if you want to listen to that one as well. It's called Eat the Frog. But a little bit different, still dealing with productivity. This one's called clearing the log jams. Now I want you to picture a river dammed up by logs or debris, something like that. And just like that river, our productivity can be obstructed by various obstacles or inefficiencies. And those obstacles and inefficiencies can really hinder us from being productive. They can keep us from getting the things done that we need to get done on a daily basis or from reaching our goals. But no worries. Today in this episode, we're going to explore how to identify those log jams, how to overcome those, how to clear those log jams out, and most of all, how to create powerful, positive momentum that propels us forward. So think about that river or that creek, and it's dammed up or it's clogged up by debris, and that is our workflow. That's our productivity. And so we're going to tackle that today. So why is it so important to clear these log jams anyway? Well, log jams are like roadblocks, and they impede our progress. They get in the way of us reaching our goals. They drain our energy. They can create a level of frustration on our part, and they hinder our productivity. And by proactively identifying these log jams, these obstacles, then we can unlock a flow of progress and allow our productivity to thrive. Okay, and that's going to create a momentum in you, a momentum in your workflow, in your progress, in your productivity, and you're going to be excited about that. So let's dive in. How do we clear these log jams? And first, let's talk about some specific steps. Okay, so there's really three things that I want to talk about when it comes to the specific steps. And the first one is identifying the log jams. We can't clear what we don't know, right? We have to identify what that obstacle is, or that roadblock, or a log jam in today's context, before we can even start to clear it out. So we want to take a look at our workflows. We want to look at our processes. We want to look at our daily routines. I was in a meeting this week, and I mentioned just the idea of us reviewing our processes, just taking a step back and looking at what do our processes look like, and is there areas of bottleneck, or is there areas of roadblock or log jam, if you will, and what can we do to clear those out? But first, we have to identify those. So we're looking for bottlenecks, we're looking for inefficiencies, we're looking for tasks that might continuously cause delays. So when you're thinking about your work and the things that you do on a daily basis, and maybe not even your work, because this can really, transfer or be applied to even our personal lives, or maybe a hobby or some training that we're doing, right? So, we experience log jams in all areas of our life. So oftentimes on this podcast, we talk about things in the context of business, or in the things in the context of entrepreneurship or something like that. But most of the concepts that we talk about can really be applied across the board to all areas of our life. So when we're thinking about these processes or these tasks, what are the things that you do on a daily basis, or frequently within within your work that create delays, that are constantly becoming roadblocks. Those are the things that we want to try to identify. And they can be things like unclear communication. That's a big one. I'm a big advocate on good, clear, concise, effective communication. And bad communication can create all kinds of log jams, whether it's unclear communication or a misdirection or inconsistent messages. This just unclear communication can create a significant log jam. Redundant processes. Maybe we're doing the same thing over again, or maybe we're duplicating efforts, and that is creating a delay in processes, or a delay in task being completed, or even unnecessary meetings. I saw a T-shirt the other day, and it said something about, I'm probably going to mess this all up, but it said something like, "Thank you for allowing me to attend another meeting that could have been an email," right? So we've all been to those, right? The meetings that are just for the sake of having a meeting, but really it's not necessary. It's on the schedule. Maybe it's a recurring meeting, but there just isn't anything that needs to be accomplished in that particular meeting. Or maybe it's a regular meeting that never gets anything accomplished, right? Just the unnecessary meetings. We'll do a podcast on meetings. I think we've done one before. I feel like we have, but it's probably time to do another one just on the effectiveness of meetings. But unnecessary meetings can be a log jam, right? So the first thing that we want to do is identify the log jams. And you may be able to just, boom, there's one, boom, there's one, boom, there's one. You might be able to pick them out plain as day. Other log jams, you may have to stand back and kind of take a 10,000-foot view of the process, and maybe even jot these things down. Maybe even write the steps to the process down, and then look at those steps. Stand back and take a look at those steps and say, okay, well, this right here is a constant delay in our process. So what can we do to fix this particular step? So the first thing we want to do is identify our log jams. All right, after that, number 2, we want to prioritize and we want to streamline. All right, so number 1, identify the jams. Number 2, prioritize and streamline. All right, so once we've identified these log jams, now we want to prioritize them based on their impact and their urgency. So how big of an impact is this particular logjam having on our process, on our workflow, on our day, on our productivity, on our profitability, on our employee satisfaction? Like what impact is this particular jam having? We need to identify that, right? So we base it on the impact and the urgency. And in our last podcast, I mentioned I was going to talk about the Eisenhower. I was going to do a podcast on the Eisenhower matrix. I may do that one next. So, but we will do it in the future. But it talks a lot about urgency and identifying the urgency of tasks. So we want to identify or prioritize, the logjam based on its impact and its urgency. And then we want to find ways to streamline, or better yet, if we can, eliminate the tasks that don't add significant value. So think about that. You've got a log jam in there, and maybe it's because it's just the way we've always done it. You know what I'm talking about? It's one of those tasks where maybe it was already taking place before you got there, and you really don't even know why we do it. Maybe you've questioned it before, but the answer that you've always got is, well, that's just the way we've always done it. That reminds me of this story. There was an experiment. There was 5 monkeys in this cage, and there was a ladder in the cage, and the ladder led up to the ceiling where there was a bunch of bananas that were hanging. And whenever a monkey would try to climb the ladder to reach for the bananas, the entire group would be sprayed with cold water. And over time, another monkey would go up and they would get sprayed. Another monkey would go up, they would get sprayed. And the monkeys eventually learned that attempting to climb the ladder resulted in discomfort for the whole group. And as a result, they formed this, new normal that no monkey should ever climb the ladder. And eventually the researchers replaced one of the original monkeys with a new monkey that had never been sprayed, so that they had never been in the cage before. When the new monkey saw the bananas, it tried to climb the ladder, and the other monkeys immediately stopped it. Without even knowing the reason, the new monkey learned that climbing the ladder was forbidden. and they don't even know why. So the researchers, they continued to replace one monkey after another until all the monkeys in the cage were replaced, and none of the monkeys that were still in the cage had ever been sprayed. But this new norm still persisted, and any monkey that attempted to climb the ladder was stopped by the others, even though they didn't know why. In this story, it highlights how assumptions and learned behaviors that we can have, they can persist without even knowing why, without a clear reason, or without even understanding the purpose. And that serves as a good reminder for us to question sometimes the existing norms, or to challenge the assumptions that might hinder progress, or they might maybe hold us back from reaching our goals. They might be a log jam. That story was in the context of something called blowing up the assumption stack. So you're trying to take away all these assumptions and blow it up and start over. And I can't remember what book that was from. I apologize for not giving credit where credit is due. I know I read it somewhere, but it's escaping me right now where it was. So I apologize. If I think of it, I'll put it in the notes, into the show notes. So certainly doing what we've always done in the past just because that's always the way it's been done, that can certainly be a logjam. Ultimately, what we want to focus on is what truly drives results. So think about that. When you're prioritizing and identifying and trying to streamline, we're identifying these logjams. We're prioritizing them based on their impact and their urgency, and we're trying to find ways to streamline and eliminate, if possible, tasks that don't add significant value. And the whole purpose of that is to be able to focus on what truly drives results. And now third, we want to break down those tasks into something that's manageable. Okay, so large, daunting tasks can create log jams of their own. Sometimes the task is so big, you don't even know where to start, right? The old saying, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. But sometimes that just is overwhelming, and it can be daunting, and we don't even know where to begin. You know, the task is so large that just the task itself can create a log jam. We can get paralysis by analysis. Have you heard that before? Where you spend so much time thinking about something or trying to plan something or trying to work through it that you don't get anything done. You know what I'm talking about? So we need to break those daunting tasks down into smaller, more manageable steps. And this not only helps in overcoming procrastination, which is that oftentimes that paralysis by analysis, but it also makes progress feel so much more attainable. If we're getting little things done, if we have little wins, I love celebrating the little wins. You know, sometimes we don't get those big wins every day, right? Sometimes it's, you know, just a little thing that we were able to accomplish. And it's important to celebrate those little wins. Don't shortchange the little things, because all the little things add up to big things. So when you're accomplishing your little goals, just remember all those little goals, they add up to big things. You can't take a large, daunting task and accomplish it all at one time and just check it off the box. And if you could, that'd be amazing, right? But it doesn't work that way. Our big, large, daunting tasks, they're really just a culmination of a lot of small things. And when we check the box off for each one of those small things, we're getting closer and closer and closer to checking the box off for that big, daunting task. So our 3 specific steps into clearing the log jams. Number 1, we got to identify the jam. Number 2, we got to prioritize, and we have to streamline the process. And number 3, we got to break it down into manageable steps. Now, clearing the log jams, it doesn't just remove obstacles. And if you don't get anything out of this podcast today, I want you to get this. Okay, so listen, it creates momentum. Just like that river, put your mind back to that river you were thinking about. And as you start to clear away some of those things, you know, you start to clear away some of those logs and that debris and the leaves and the sticks, what happens? That water starts to move faster, doesn't it? And it starts to speed up a little bit. Just like that river is gaining speed as those logs and debris is removed, productivity breeds more productivity. If you're in the sales environment or sales space, you've probably heard that phrase before. Productivity breeds more productivity. The more that we do, the more activities we're involved in, the more activity is going to happen. The energy that we get from clearing one log jam propels us to be able to tackle the next log jam and the next one and the next one. And soon we're going to find ourselves in a state of productivity flow. We're going to find ourselves in a state of flow where progress just becomes effortless, because think about that river. You've got the log jams and you're starting to clear them out, What happens to that water? It starts flowing faster and faster and faster. And eventually, what? That water starts to help clear the jams. You're no longer having to pull those log jams out one by one. The water is starting to clear those log jams, starting to push it downriver. And all of a sudden, that river, the productivity, the flow of that river, it just takes over. And you're just along for the ride at that point. And this is when you got high energy and you're enjoying what you're doing and you look forward to the next task at hand. And maybe you're saying right now, that sounds amazing, Jayme, but I just can't get there. Like, I can't get my log jams cleared. Well, I want to break something down to you. There's going to be some self-reflection that is going to be needed right here. Clearing log jams requires self-discipline and it requires accountability. Okay, self-discipline and accountability. Sometimes we get caught up in the easy tasks or the ones that we enjoy, right? The ones that are, sometimes it's the low-hanging fruit. It's just the stuff that's easy. It's the stuff that we enjoy. It's the smaller tasks. It's the smaller cases, right? And we avoid the necessary, but perhaps less appealing tasks. The ones that maybe we just keep kicking the can down the road. You know what I'm talking about? That task that's been on your list. It's on your to-do list. It's been on your to-do list. Maybe it's the frog that you haven't eaten yet, but you've got this thing. It's on your it's your log jam. You can identify it. You're thinking about it right now. It's the less appealing thing. It's the thing you just dread. It's what you don't want to do. But when you do it, when you finally get that thing out of the way, you're going to have such a feeling of accomplishment. And that is going to be, maybe that's the log that's holding up all the other logs. You know, maybe that's the one that everything else is holding on to. And when you clear that one out of the way, the river starts to flow. You got to maintain your focus. You got to set clear goals. You got to establish a routine. Go listen to last week's podcast on your non-negotiables. There's things in your daily world that are non-negotiables. And if you don't do those non-negotiables, they become log jams. So you've got to establish a solid routine. But look, you've got to hold yourself accountable. Don't expect somebody else to hold you accountable. It is not someone else's job to hold you accountable. That's your own job. You've got to hold yourself accountable to the things that you know need to be done. You've got to be engaged. You got to be committed. It's not somebody else's job to try to get commitment out of you, to try to get engagement out of you, to try to motivate you. That's not somebody else's job. That's your job. Your job is to hold yourself accountable. Remember, discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishments. You want to write that down? Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishments. Sometimes that discipline means that we have to limit our distractions. And I know in today's world, in today's environment, a major impact, a major distraction in the business world is social media. Everything is connected, right? Your phone is connected. Your computer is connected. Your watch is connected. Your tablet is connected. I mean, heck, sometimes our cars are even connected to social media. In our connected world that we live in, I get it. There's this constant lure of notifications, and then you get caught in an endless scrolling, and it can divert your attention and really significantly hinder your productivity. You know what I'm talking about? You get a notification, you look at the notification, you see it, but then the next thing you're like, oh, that's interesting, and here's an article I want to read, and then here's a reel. I got to watch this reel, and I'm just going to watch just one more reel, and I'm just going to look at one more. And then 5 minutes have passed, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and you not only have you just wasted time, but listen to me, not only have you wasted time, but now you're distracted and you're off task. Okay, so you were productive. You were working on things. You were trying to accomplish your goals. You were trying to get to the place where you could clear log jams, and you just got sidetracked. And not only did you just waste 15 minutes, maybe you wasted 15 minutes of your employer's time. You wasted 15, 20, 30 minutes, but you also got sidetracked, and now you got to get yourself back in gear and back on track. Sometimes that's more impactful than the 15 minutes that you just wasted. So I want to encourage you to take control of your digital habits. And that's going to require setting boundaries. Maybe you have designated social media breaks because maybe in your line of work, social media is important. It could be that part of your role involves managing some level of social media or prospecting on social media or following some social media page or something like that. So if that's the case, set aside some designated social media breaks so that you're not just randomly getting involved with social media and getting distracted throughout the day. And also consider turning off your notifications during your times of productivity. So maybe during your work hours, you shut off your notifications so you don't get notified of any social media messages that might come in. There's some apps out there that you can use to help to limit distractions or to help to keep you on track with to-do lists, all that kind of stuff. I mean, all that's available, but the bottom line is you got to be self-disciplined. All that stuff is just a help. But if you're not self-disciplined, you're just going to find ways around all of those little tools that exist. So set some boundaries for yourself. Implement some specific, meaningful breaks if you need to. Utilize some apps to help to limit distractions if that's important to you or if that works for you. But the bottom line is you got to be self-disciplined. You need to focus on the tasks at hand and not allow the things around you, be it social media or anything else, to create distractions that get you off task. Well, folks, that's about all the time I've got for today. As we wrap up this episode, I want to leave you with this thought. Clearing the log jams and fostering momentum is going to allow you to unlock a different level of productivity than you're used to. All right, so getting the log jams out of the way, which in turn fosters this momentum, and that's really the key, right? It's not getting the log jams that's the thing that we're looking for. You can clear a log jam, but if nothing happens after the log jam is cleared, then we haven't accomplished anything. We want to clear the log jams so that momentum can take over. When that happens, you're going to experience a new level of productivity that maybe you've never felt before. Embrace this idea of self-discipline and accountability, and I'm going to do a podcast specifically about holding yourself accountable in the coming weeks. But start to embrace this idea of self-discipline and accountability, of you holding yourself accountable. Don't wait for someone else to do it. I saw a meme the other day. It said, if you have to ask them to help carry the bricks, they're not the ones you want to build with. Let that sink in for a minute. If you have to ask them to help carry the bricks, then they're not the ones that you want to build with. Don't let somebody else be the keeper of your accountability. You hold yourself accountable. And remember this, progress is not always easy, okay? Progress has roadblocks. Progress has speed bumps. Progress has bumps in the road, challenges, struggles. That's what progress is all about, but we're moving forward. And progress is the path to success. Well, I want to thank you for joining me today. Please hit that subscribe button and do me a huge favor and share this podcast with your 5 closest friends, because chances are if you liked it, they're going to like it too. But most of all, I hope something that was said today helps you to become a better version of yourself. I'm your host, Jayme Yarroch, and I hope you have an amazing day.